The theme of the Torah chapter Noah is, of course, the great flood, where the people, society, had become so corrupt and so self-destructive that God tells Noah that he's going to destroy the world. However, he will preserve Noah and his family and tells him, therefore, to build an ark, a boat that would withstand the pressures and the challenges of the flood. So while the entire earth was so-called cleansed of its evil, Noah and his family were protected in the ark. And as the flood waters raged, they remained in the ark until after 40 days and 40 nights, the Bible continues, when the water subsided. So then Noah is told by God that now is the time to leave the ark and rebuild life. Now for many of us, this is a very wild story, a flood. People have scientific questions about it. But above all, the biggest question in every line, literally of every cell, every iota of Torah, has to be one question and one question only. What is its personal lesson? And what is its relevance to our lives? Because you see, Torah means direction. The word Torah itself means directive. It also means to illuminate light. The Torah serves as a blueprint for life, and as such, its message has to be relevant to us right now in the 21st century, not just some ancient biblical narrative that may have some metaphorical messages, but something that really is relevant, and more than that, I would say indispensable. So here's the story. The floodwaters are representative of all the challenges that each of us have in life, and particularly the ones that come from material survival. We all are surrounded by the raging floodwaters. This can be an unstable economy. It can be the pressures of making ends meet. And this is actually stated by Rav Shneir Zalman of Liadi. He says, Mayim Rabim, which means the raging waters are the raging waters of the worries and anxieties that we all have about parnasa, about making a living. And they overwhelm a person. Because if you can't make a living, you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your rent, you can't buy what you want to buy. We all know what kind of pressure it places upon us. But in a broader sense, the raging waters really are all material pressures. And they can destroy us. So when God says to Noah, build me an ark, build an ark, what he's really saying is the word for ark in Hebrew in this chapter is teva. So the Baal Shem Tov, the holy Baal Shem Tov, the great Hasidic master, says the word teva, there are many different words for boat in Hebrew. There's a sfina, there's naniya. The word teva actually also in Hebrew means word. Teva itself means words. He says surround yourself with the words of prayer and the words of Torah. And these are the so-called the insulators that protect us from the raging floodwaters around us. So in simple terms it means, if you want to in any way be able to transcend, to protect yourself, your family, children, friends, from the pressures of material pressures of life, you have to have an ark. You have to be able to take time every day, every week, where you can protect yourself with some spiritual ideas, with inspiration, with prayer, with Torah concepts that in a way create a buffer that protect you and allow you to float above the raging floodwaters. But here's the challenge. Many people who get surrounded by this ark often like to stay there, and they don't want to come out of the ark. This is called living in a ghetto or living in a yeshiva, where you're completely surrounded by spiritual environment and you're not interested in engaging with the material world. So God has to tell Noah at the end of the flood, now I command you, leave this ark, because he doesn't want to leave. Once he got himself comfortable in the womb, so to speak, in the cocoon of a spiritual environment, why return and re-engage with the world? He saw how corrupt it can get, which is the opposite challenge, that once you taste that type of spiritual environment, you say, I don't like this world, which is basically an ascetic lifestyle. And God says, no, I did not create the world for you to isolate yourself and for you to escape it, but you have to engage with it. When you're surrounded by the ark and you have that insulation, now you have to return to the world and build a new world. This, in essence, is the entire theme of this chapter, one that's extremely personal, because, as I said, we all face the corrupting forces of materialism, sometimes have the tendency to want to just escape it all to some mountain or some oasis, and then we can't engage the world, because if we do, we get hurt by it. as the floodwaters, or we isolate ourselves and then we don't engage with the world. So the story is really telling us that we need both. There are times where we need either weekends on a Shabbat, or other times you need to have a weekly class or time for prayer. When you begin each day, we begin the day traditionally with a little prayer, with a little study. That in a sense creates a buffer, like a protective layer, that when we engage with the world, we can rise above and not be completely consumed and affected by these floodwaters. But then, we cannot remain stuck also in the holy place. We have to also leave that cocoon, that ark, and go back out into the world and engage. This is really the beauty of Judaism, where there's a certain harmony between engaging with the world but not becoming overwhelmed by it. It's like being part of it but being above it. So Judaism engages the world but also teaches us to sanctify it. In other philosophies you find those that teach an aesthetic approach, and others teach outer materialism. Here is some type of in-between place. We need our arks, but we also have to know when to leave our ark. And this is essentially the message for each of us in our own personal lives. Wherever you are, you will be faced at times with floodwaters, and you'll have to create some type of protective zone. But at the same time, you have to also know you can't just remain home, or in a synagogue, or in a temple, or in a school, yeshiva. You have to also go out and take the spiritual power that you receive from the Torah and from prayer and reshape and transform the universe.